Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Biology Simplified, and today we will be discussing about types of reproduction. Okay, so let us discuss about the various types of reproduction. The first and foremost, we are dividing reproduction into two types. The first one is asexual reproduction and the second type of reproduction is sexual reproduction. So let us see what happens in asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is the one in which the organisms are producing the new individuals and a single parent is involved. Okay, so there is an involvement of only single parent, and this would be happening without the involvement of gametes or without the involvement of sex cells. So there would be no involvement of gametes, there is no formation of gametes in asexual reproduction, and only a single parent is involved in this mode of reproduction. Next type is sexual reproduction. Now, what happens in sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction, the organisms are producing the progeny and there are involvement of two parents. Okay, so two parents are involved, and with the help of gametes, the sex cells are produced, or gametes are produced by the reproductive organs, and then these gametes fuse, and after fusion or after fertilization, zygote is formed, and that zygote develops into a new individual. Okay, so this is how the sexual reproduction takes place. Now let us discuss some of the ways or the different types of the asexual reproduction. Now asexual reproduction can have the following types. Fission can be one example of asexual reproduction. Budding can be another example of asexual reproduction. Regeneration, fragmentation, spore formation, vegetative propagation, all these are the examples of asexual reproduction, which we are going to further now study in this video. So the first type of asexual reproduction is fission. Okay, so let us see what happens in fission. Fission is an asexual reproduction by which the unicellular organism divides and forms two or more individuals. So एक unicellular organism, unicellular का मतलब single cell. Okay, so the organism which has single cell in the body is unicellular organism, and when it divides and forms two or more individuals, this mode is called as fission. Fine, so now it can be of two types. The first one is the binary fission and the second type is the multiple fission. Now let us see what happens in binary fission. So binary fission, as we know, binary fission, binary means two. Okay, so here a unicellular organism will be dividing and further it would be giving rise to two individuals. So two individuals as progeny would be formed when the organism divides by this binary fission mode. Okay, so what happens if, for example, in amoeba binary fission is observed? So this is amoeba and this is the parent cell of amoeba. Now this is further dividing. First of all, the nucleus is going to divide. So this is nucleus, and we know the outer one is cytoplasm. So what will happen first? First the nuclear division will happen, which is going to be followed by cytokinesis or the division of cytoplasm. So nuclear division is what you call as, it is called as karyokinesis. Now first karyokinesis will happen and further it would be further followed by cytokinesis or the division of cytoplasm, and hence we would be getting two organisms or two daughter cells from one single parent cell. Okay, so this is how amoeba divides. It divides by the process of binary fission. Now next is another type of fission, which is multiple fission. Now what happens in multiple fission? In this method, one organism divides and it is forming many daughter cells. Okay, so from a single parent, instead of two, because binary fission may we had two daughter cells, here in multiple fission we will have multiple daughter cells. Okay, so we will have multiple daughter cells from one single parent or one organism. Okay, so for example, it happens in plasmodium. Plasmodium is malarial parasite. It causes malaria in human beings, and this is how it divides. So you can see over here, this is the parent cell of plasmodium. The nucleus is present in center. Now what happens within the parent cells? This multiple nuclei are going going to be formed. Within this parent cell, within the single parent cell, you will have the formation of multiple nuclei inside this. Okay, so by the process of karyokinesis. Now after that, what happens, the outer covering, which is called as cyst here, cyst is going to be breaking down, and all the cells which were present inside it, all the daughter cells in fact which were present inside it, are going to be released out. So these daughter cells are coming out of the cell. Now each of this daughter cell is a new cell, and it is capable of giving rise to further many of the daughter cells. Okay, so this is how the multiple fission happens from a single parent. When you have multiple daughter cells formed, this type of fission is called as multiple fission. Okay, so this was first type of asexual reproduction. Now one more example in binary fission that we have to mention here is, now one more example in binary fission is for paramecium. We have seen one example earlier, which is from amoeba. Now another example from binary fission is paramecium. So this is the mature cell, or this is the parent cell, which is further dividing, and this is giving rise to two daughter cells. So these two are the daughter cells, and this one is the parent cell. So one parent cell giving rise to two daughter cells, and therefore we call it as binary. Binary means two. So binary fission, which happens in paramecium, and earlier also we have seen one example of binary fission, which is amoeba. Next type of asexual reproduction is fragmentation. Now let us see what happens in fragmentation. In fragmentation, it is a method again for the asexual reproduction in which one single organism, now here the organism is multicellular organism. Okay, remember earlier we had taken the unicellular organism in fission, and here we have multicellular organism which is breaking down into smaller pieces. Okay, so small fragments would be formed from a single multicellular organism. So smaller fragments or smaller pieces would be forming from one single multicellular organism, and each fragment, हर एक जो fragment बनेगा, that is going to be developing into a new adult individual. Each fragment can form the new adult individual. It has the capacity to form the new adult individual. Fine. So a classic example is Spirogyra. So see, this is the Spirogyra, and this one is the parent cell or the mature Spirogyra. Now what has happened here is it has fragmented. Okay, so there are fragments which are produced here. So this is the first fragment, this is the second fragment. Now each of these fragments, these fragments can develop into a mature adult Spirogyra. Fine. So here this type of reproduction is called as fragmentation. Okay, so fragments are formed, and so the name is fragmentation. The next mode of asexual reproduction is regeneration. Okay, now what happens in regeneration? Here the body of the organism is cut or broken down. So this is important, that the body is being cut or broken down into smaller pieces, and what is important here is all these pieces have the capacity, or they have the ability to develop into a new complete organism. Fine. So these small pieces which are from in which the body of this organism or this parent cell is cut, each of the smaller fragment has the capacity or has the ability to develop into a full new organism. And this process is what we call as regeneration, which is very much common in Hydra and Planaria. Okay, so Hydra and Planaria are two examples of regeneration. This figure tells you about Planaria. So this is Planaria, wherein the regeneration is shown here. The body is cut into different pieces. You can see these are the pieces, and these pieces can grow now into a complete new individual. Fine. So there are three planarias over here coming from a single parent, and such like individual would be reproducing with the process of regeneration. Similarly, we can also see regeneration in Hydra. Hydra, if it is amputated, then it has the capacity to develop or to regenerate into a new individual. So you can see over here, this is the parent cell, the parent hydra, which is amputated, and now each of these part is capable of regeneration and it has developed into a new hydra. Fine. So as the growth will happen, they can also be the adult beings and they further can regenerate and form new individuals. Fine. So this is how regeneration happens in hydra as well. Now, one more important point here is regeneration is not same as reproduction. Okay, so this regeneration is not something which is happening in place of reproduction in these organisms, because majority of these organisms would not be waiting for being cut. वो वेट नहीं करेंगे कि उनको काटा जाए तब वो रिप्रोड्यूस करें. ओके, सो देयरफॉर इट इज नॉट अ कॉमन phenomenon which is happening in most of the organisms. It is just by chance that if it happens in these organisms, then under unfavorable conditions they have the capacity to develop into a new individual from the parts that are being cut from their body. But otherwise they would not be waiting for being cut to reproduce. Okay, so this is important point that you need to take into consideration. Next example of asexual reproduction is budding. Now what happens in budding? Budding is the general method by which hydra reproduce. Okay, so a hydra, what happens? A bud-like structure develops as an outgrowth of repeated cell division at one specific site. So there is one particular site. So for example, see in this diagram, this is one site wherein this bud appears. Okay, so this is the site wherein this bud is appearing, and now this bud will have continuous division and repeated cell divisions at this particular site will happen, and so these buds will develop further and they would be forming the tiny individuals. Okay, so once they mature, once they are fully mature, they are going to be detached. Now see, if now here it has grown and here it has almost grown to maturation, and so it can further detach from the body. It is detaching, it is coming out from the parent body, and it has become a new individual. Now this is able to survive as an individual hydra. Okay, so this is a method of reproduction which is common in hydra, and it reproduces by the method called as budding. Next example of budding is yeast. In yeast also budding is seen. So for example, this is the mature organism wherein you will have this structure which is appearing, which is called as the bud. Okay, now this bud further, as it happened in hydra, this is also maturing further, it is growing further, and once it is fully mature, it is going to come and it is going to detach from the parent body. Okay, and then it is capable of surviving individually once it detaches from the parent body. If you have liked the video, please subscribe the channel, and if you have any doubts regarding the topic, please write in the comment section. Thank you.